Welcome once again to Natural 9, the show on the internet that tries to summarize Critical Role in 9 minutes or less, then flips a goddamn climax. Oh my good lord. Sorry, that is a joke for 3% of the audience. 1% of that 3% being the people that I faced off with at a tournament in Rochester this weekend. So that's why the episode's a bit later than usual this week. Sorry about that. We're going to try to do everything we can to push through. A lot of shit went down. So let's just get right into the action on Natural 9 this week. So if you recall last time, we started off inside the city of Brass. Vox Machina searching for the Plate of the Dawn Martyr, the final vestige, and I'm right this time, it is actually the final vestige, supposedly something for Pike to use. While in the city of Brass, they were very nearly enslaved, being a party of people that were not Frite or Ganassi or any sort of non-slave species. After some shenanigans and being basically saved by a couple of crazy individuals, a tiefling called Utan and a Ganassi called Senokir, party now owing them a favor asks them for another to help them find the fire giant who won the Plate of the Dawn Martyr in a bet. After some conversation and the decision to appear as slaves so as to not get harassed by anyone else on the streets, Senokir and Utan agree to help them out in exchange for yet another favor. A lot of favors stacking up there, Vox Machina. They discover through the conversation that they may be looking for a giant called Waska, who is apparently a very celebrated blacksmith in the area. Now, there were lots of fire giants in the city of Brass at some point, but they were eventually enslaved after being basically betrayed by some of their fire giant kin. Waska was one of these fire giants. During their walk, where they see a bunch of things like bridges over lava, random humans that aren't subjugated, but in fact are free. It's a bit of a mishmash in the city, apparently. Keyleth and Utan have a little bit of a talk about how Senokir is an interesting fellow, and if he loves giving tours. They discover that Utan and Senokir have been hanging around the city for 10 years. They've been trolling since then, and they've run a pretty good business. She's then told maybe she shouldn't talk too much, and to appear as if she was actually a slave driver because she's one of the ones that is not in chains. So she whips poor Grog. And they finally arrive at their destination, the workshop of this giant Waska, the Zenith Forge. Upon arriving at the forge, the party decides who's going to talk and how they're going to approach this whole thing. They have to either choose themselves, giving up the game almost immediately, or the masters, so Keyleth and Senokir, you know, the great talkers of the group. All the while, Vex casts Locate Object, just to make sure that she can find it in the area, which is 1,000 feet. It has a 1,000 foot radius for the spell, but there's nothing. She doesn't feel a thing. Although the possibility that this place is much bigger than they thought is discussed, which Senokir confirms. It is a rather large area. Party finally decides Keyleth is going to be the one to ask. So yeah, they're going to ask him if he knows what the Plate of the Dawn Martyr is, if he knows where it is, and if he does but doesn't want to give that information, if a favor can be traded. So many favors, so many debts. They also discuss the possibility of bringing up the Sutan bloodline, the apparent originators of the Plate of the Dawn Martyr. While this is all being prepared, Vex is very curious about where Senokir is from. He doesn't really give her an answer, even after her patented Vex charm. Once they're inside the forge, they encounter a giant, and he is giant. About twice the size of Grog, between 16 and 20 feet. They figure this guy's Waska, and Senokir confirms. Keyleth does an incredible job of speaking to this fire giant by letting him know exactly what her name is. Not her fake Ganassi name, because she pretended to be a Ganassi, but rather her full name, Keyleth of the Arashari. Well done, Keyleth. Well done. With intros out of the way, the questions are asked. First question, he has no idea what it is, mostly because he wasn't the one that made it. A lot of pride in this one. Keyleth then speaks about how it was won in a card game by another fire giant, and that triggers something. He may know who they were talking about. He then asks Keyleth what this information is worth to her. She almost panics and doesn't agree to whatever his terms are. He sets up a table to parlay. Kiki then asks Senokir what the giant may want. Senokir's like, I don't fucking know. Maybe just ask him. He's looking for powerful items. Make me an offer, he basically says. Things that are considered, they've got the Great Sword of Frenzy, lightning resistance rings, the mask that Grog wears, Ring of Protection +1, the Alchemy Jug, which is talked down by most of Vox Machina. Ultimately, the Great Sword and Ring of Lightning Resistance are offered to the impatient giant. This is a good start, but apparently it's not enough. They add the Ring of Protection +1 and another magic necklace that they found in their inventory. Still not enough. In fact, it's so not enough that he says that if their next offer isn't good, he'll snitch on them, because he knows who they are. Well, he knows that they're not slaves, at least. Vox Machina settles on their final offer, white dragon hide. You know, the stuff that they picked up off Vorgol. He accepts the offer, and notes that this offer is definitely one of respect. All 40 pounds of dragon skin that they got from Vorgol is traded. They weren't ever going to use it. They already have badass armor. He finally gives them their info. It may be between one of the two other fire giants in the City of Brass. The first giant is one called Sugan. He's basically the guy behind the entire enslavement of the fire giants in the city. Unfortunately, he is way too important to be talked to in person. The second one is Jurael, a woman who is in charge of the slag mines in the deeper parts of the City of Brass. They figure it's good to talk to her first. Waska gives them a giant hubcap of an icon thing that is basically like a badge saying, hey, we talked to this guy, so we're cool, right? It's basically what it says. And he also tells them that if they get in trouble, he don't know them, and they don't know him. While walking to their next destination, the place of business for Jurael, they notice demons and all sorts walking around. They also notice that they just walked by the embassy to the Nine Hells. They are told to give it a wide berth, and decide to give it a wide berth. Probably not a good idea to go there just yet. We're coming for you, Rakshasa! They finally arrive at the Smoking Hammer Shrine, this sort of reverse spiral looking building. It's like spirals from the bottom all the way up. They discuss their approach and figure the best thing to do is not to play up the value of the Plate of the Dawn Martyr. Maybe something that the giant has no idea what it is. They figure Scanlan should be the one to talk, and he should be the one to win. What's he gonna win? Well, you'll see in a moment. Vex throws up another locate object, and there it is. It lights up like a beacon inside the shrine about 25 feet up. Vax climbs up the building and decides to peek inside the windows. His first one is servants' quarters. The second one is trapped. Good Vax. Good trap checking Vax. He does manage to get a peek inside. The natural 20 perception check. It looks like a nice master bedroom, but there's no sign of the plate. All this happened while the rest of the crew walked around to avoid suspicion, but they come back. Grog then knocks on the door, and by knocks on the door we mean he uses the siege function on the Titan Stone Knuckles. He then manages to somehow fool Pike and Keyleth, who are carrying around this giant icon plate thing. It had some script on it. Unfortunately, Grog can't read, so he doesn't know what it actually says, but he manages to fool Keyleth and Pike into holding on to the plate for dear life because otherwise they're gonna die. He rolled a natural 20 to fool Pike. Well, that's sad, Grog. How did it come to this? Two fire giants greet them at the door, and Scanlan asks the burning question that is on everyone's mind. Are they fuckable? Matt says it's up to you, man. You've done some freakier shit. Upon being greeted by these giants, they're asked what they want. Kiki stumbles over her words, and she yells out that they want to make a deal, and also that they want to play card games on motorcycles. No? No? Okay. Jurael makes her appearance wearing a platinum and gold-lined dress. Casual stuff. After showing off the little metal thing, or big metal thing to them, she agrees to talk to them. She respects Waska's opinion and wants to hear what they have to say. They all walk in, the building's beautifully decorated, nice fall colors. Grog takes a sip of some potion of Fox's cunning. It doesn't increase his intelligence, but it does give him advantage on intelligence checks going forward. Vex looks for the armor, and it's on the wall to the right, and it is blinging, like brass with rubies inset. It is good looking. Might clash with Pike's hair, though. The giant is aware that they're not actually slaves and says that they could speak candidly. It's okay. Utan unlocks their shackles as a result. The Scanlan bullshit machine begins. He calls himself a bit of a card shark, going all around the realms, challenging people to card games, talking about the things that he's won in the card games, specifically all the people in the room that aren't giants. That's right, he won all of Vox Machina by winning in card games. Scanlan then makes a bid for the armor after shutting down Slave Percy's request for the shield, because there's also a shield in the back. Jurael asks him if he knows the history of the plate armor, and then agrees to a best 2 out of 3 game. The plate bet against his slaves. They go ahead and play the Hand of Ord, which if you recall was one of the games played at the Lux Run in Ank'Harel. One of the games that they didn't play. Scanlan, being traveled, knows the rules. Take 3 dice, a d8, then a d6, then a d4. You can raise after each roll, and then you reveal the numbers at the end, the higher total winning, or you can fold in between. The first hands are picked. Unfortunately, Scanlan lost. The second hand begins. She raises to include Scanbo himself in the bet. He says hell no with a 32 deception check, but instead convinces her to not take her second card and go straight to the third, then he'll include himself in the bet. She accepts this. Her total was a 10. Scanlan's total was a different number because he was just about to cheat. Unfortunately, Percy's attempt at minor illusion is caught. Instead of finally revealing his hand, Scanlan decides to tell her that he's going to kill her. He tells him not to go down that path though, and accept his loss with dignity. He reveals a 9. She won the bets, but she's willing to parlay. Another favor on the stack of favors. Jurael's husband was killed by a pit fiend called Gorix. Apparently some sort of ambassador to the City of Brass from the Nine Hells. Of course, this doesn't sit well by her. She wants him dead, and she figures the best way to assassinate him is while he's out shopping for slaves at the Golden Arches downtown. He wears a necklace shaped like 2 manacles, relatively easy find. Vex then requests something that shows that they're quote-unquote owned by Jurael to make it look good. She is then given shackles. Senekir offers him a room at his place for the night, and they all head there. The party thinks about heading to Daxio just for the night, just to see what's going on back there, but they have no real way to guarantee that they'll be back at Senekir's. And last time they entered the City of Brass, they gave up a giant bag of jewels, so probably not a good idea, at least not yet. The city starts shutting down after a curfew. No going out during this curfew, or they'll be put in chains. Vax thinks about stealing the plate somehow, but Percy thinks maybe don't do that, just because they're probably not going to be able to bamf out if they need to. Keyleth scries on this being called Gorix. He's apparently asleep inside the embassy. Not much is learned apart from the fact that he's a scary motherfucker. A lot of ideas are tossed around at this point. They think pretending to be slaves, dominating him, throwing him into the mansion in some way, shape, or form is an option. Senekir doesn't want anything to do with this. Eventually, they do settle upon one very strange circumstance as an option. Selling a set of 6 identical sextuplets. Vax and Vex clones, basically. Might be appealing because this guy's looking for unique slaves. The idea of the mansion is brought up again, this time with having it serve as a storage room for the magnificent slave shop. Senekir figures that plan's gonna fail, so he suggests having the soldiers in the area, called the Illuminated, on their side, either by bribing them or... They also think about getting in contact with the Sultan whatever the fuck his name is. It's really fucking long. It's longer than Percy's. I'm not gonna say that shit. But they think about talking to that guy, but they're ultimately convinced that they shouldn't do it because it's a very, very bad idea to mess with him. Ultimately, they decide the mansion trap is gonna work. Somehow. With a backup plan of making sure to convince the guards that Gorix is a dick and he's looking to overthrow people and whatever. Scanlan then decides to disguise himself as a fire dwarf with flaming beard. I'm very good at words. The party goes to sleep for the night inside the mansion, and we have one of the saddest moments in the stream ever. Grog's potion is fading away, and then he asks Pike to help him learn how to read and write his name. It's just the saddest. Oh my god, it's a beautiful moment, but it's so sad that he loses the ability to read his name. Oh, come on, Matt. Why would you do that to us? The next day, the plan is set into motion. Seeming transforms everyone into copies of Vax and Vex. Senekir gives them directions to the slave shops at the Golden Arches, with Uten being their guide. Then asks them to leave him a thing to remember them by. Really to scry, because he doesn't want to lose track of them, because they still owe him a couple favors. You look around at the other wares. There's all sorts of different presentations for slaves, and a wide variety of slaves themselves. It's like an auction hall. Vex spots some little creatures, little blue guys, that are being sold as slaves. They're actual kids from like we can see, and she just wants to save them so bad. Apparently, this was enough to push her alignment all the way back to chaotic good. Because remember, her alignment went down to chaotic neutral after she stole the broom from Grim Lanston. All those episodes ago. Jesus Christ, that was like 30 episodes ago now. That's when I was starting to watch the show. Memories. Scanlan and Vex had to check it out, and Scanlan breaks out a new identity, Francois Bertrand Jean-Luc Australia. He is French. And then he barters for the slaves. A cool 15,000 gold later, they are now the owners of these two cute little guys. So these new little guys, apparently Asimir, that's the name of the being, they're picked up and taken back to the rest of the group. All the while, the seeming as the sextuplets, the legendary Vesar sextuplets, has been messing with everyone's head. Especially Vex when Percy's talking to her. Ugh. Vex lies about how much she spent on these little guys. Vax and Percy call her out on it, with Percy saying that she's an idiot, but that he's so proud of her. The little guys are asked if they've ever seen a Pit Fiend. They shake at the very idea. Poor guys. Pike and Percy then do a bit of a walk around to try to get the attention of the Fiend or anyone in the area. Keyleth then attempts to scry once again on Gorix and fails. And remember, failure can mean that he's either not on the same plane of existence or that he managed to resist the spell's effects. More walking around from Percy and Pike and the kids, and more attempts to scry by Keyleth. The latter fails again. Vex and Vax, the real Vex and Vax, spot a being that matches the description of the Pit Fiend that they got. It is a scary-looking motherfucker. Pike and Percy don't rush back, since they wanted to continue to draw him, but the rest of the group prepares for its arrival. It doesn't show interest in most of the slaves that are up for market, so Scanlan makes a show of himself to try to get some attention. Doesn't work. He stops for a second, but then he starts walking away. And in that second, fear really strikes Scanlan and everyone around him. Percy and Pike walk past him to go back to their quote-unquote stand, and they manage to get the attention of the Pit Fiend. He heads towards them. He's very interested in purchasing the Asimir, and at this point some very, very tense discussion occurs. Scanlan's usual BS doesn't have much of an effect on this guy, unfortunately. He ends up walking away from their talks. Scanlan then, in a desperate attempt to get him to stay around, actually offers the poor kids for 10,000 gold. He comes back, interested. Vex tries to help Scanlan get out of the situation by BSing a situation in which the kids are attacking them. They fail, unfortunately. Well, it's mostly Scanlan's failure. He rolled a natural 1 on his deception check. The Pit Fiend is tired of their bullshit and almost leaves again. They decide now is the time to act. Pike and the group exit the mansion with the Asimar, and as he attempts to go for them, after promising that the embassy would pay Francois Bertrand Jean-Luc Australia, Keyleth, who's hanging out in an alleyway nearby, throws a little bit of mojo at him. She uses the spell Feeble Mind. Remember? The spell that turned Tiberius into a stupid lizard dude? All the way back when they were fighting the Briarwoods for the first time in Iman. Keyleth's packing that spell now. Unfortunately, it doesn't work nearly as well. She still manages to do some damage to him, which is cool. What the spell didn't fail to do is get his attention. In fact, seeing the circumstance, he summons up a friend. A red-winged, armored, bow-wielding, rope-owning, angelic type of friend. And that's where things are gonna pick up next week. Oh god, they're gonna fucking die. I mean, I know I say that all the time, but they're really gonna fucking die. So there you have it, that's this week's episode. Do you think they're gonna die? I sure do. But let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you like what you see. You can follow me on Twitter here, and you can follow this Twitter for episode updates. I've been Arthur from Natural 9, and is it Thursday yet?